a very close friend to you, somebody that has helped you when you were down, encouraged you, challenged you when you needed it. And as I lead us in prayer, I'm going to just ask you to, at that same time, to quietly talk to God yourself and talk to Him about that friend that you have. Let's pray together. Our Father in heaven, we look to you today and say thank you. Thank you for all that you have done for us. And Father, we also want to thank you for friends that we have had that stood beside us, friends that carried us when we needed it, friends that stood behind us and gave us a shove when we needed that, friends that picked us up, friends that pushed us. Father, I thank you for those kind of friends. And Father, I pray that you would bring a blessing to the men that have been that kind of friend throughout my life, that you would encourage them and make sure that they know today the impact that they made in my life. And we pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Please be seated. Life is tough, so you need friends. You know, there's times when life is tougher. There's times when life is easier. But we always need friends. I want to show you a picture here in just a minute. This is a picture from my senior year. It's after my senior year, and if you're trying to figure out which one I am in the black baseball cap. This was after our final review, so this is actually, I was out of the Corps at this point. We had just finished our last time. These are all of the guys that I had started with my freshman year in the outfit. We were I-1. And these were guys, this is about half or less of what started with us the freshman year when we began our time in the Corps. But as we went through that freshman year, these are the guys that got me through the first semester. Because there were so many times in the first semester that I would just want to quit. You know, you'd get frustrated. You get up at 6 a.m., you run, I would have to, because I have a heavy beard, and so I would have to get up at 6. First thing I would do is make sure that I would shave. And I would get shaved, and I'd look, and boy, it'd be like, okay, I'm shaved as clean. I mean, I would shave this way, this way, this way, this way, every way I could to try to make sure that I got it all. Walk out in the hallway, and there was one sophomore. I would walk out in the hallway, and it was like he'd just come up to me, Bowles, have you shaved in the last week? And I'm like, dude. You know, you wanted to just go, I shaved like 2 minutes ago. You don't look like it. You know, he'd yell at me, or he'd look down at my shoes, and, you know, I mean, you'd have your shoes so shined that you could stand under a light with the 2 light bulbs, you know, the fluorescent light, and you could see both light bulbs in my shoes, and I would be going, I'm perfect. Your brass would be all shined up, and he'd just start yelling at you. Looked like you rubbed mud on your shoes. And he'd look at your brass, and you couldn't look. You're supposed to look straight ahead. And out of the corner of my eye, I could see, and I'd look at the brass things that he had on his shirt collar, and I'd be thinking, dude, mine looks better than yours. And you're sitting here yelling at me, and he'd yell at you and make you do push-ups and just all of these things. And day after day, you just would get sick of it. And so about once a week, I'd be sitting in my room or one of these guys' rooms and would just be looking at him and say, man, that's it. I'm done. I quit. I've had all I can stand of this. I am out of here. I am going to go be a non-reg. I'm going to live in a non-reg dorm, and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to sleep till like 5 minutes before my class, thinking that would be great. And my buddies would say, no, Grant, you can't quit. Come on, man, you can't quit. You got to do it. Come on, we can do this. We can make it. You're not quitting on us. And they would talk me out of it. Well, the funny thing is, usually the day after they would talk me out of quitting, we'd be sitting in one of their rooms, and the same person that talked me out of quitting the day before is now going, I am so ready to quit. I'm sick of this. I'm done. And I would be the one saying, no, wait a second. No, you can do it. You can do it. We can make this. It was having those friends that knew when to push. They knew when to just sit back and let you gripe. But it's having those people that you could count on, that when I was down, one of them was going to reach up and say, hey, come on, we can do this. We can do this. We need those kind of friends. We need a friend like what Janet Kirkham had. Janet Kirkham was a member of the church in Renton. She was very sick for a number of years. And she would have to go from Renton into Seattle 2 to 3 times a week. for doctor's appointments. And those doctor's appointments, it was not like running down, to your primary care physician and it was a doctor appointment where you go in, you walk in the office, and 20 minutes later you're walking out. These are doctor's appointments where you had to leave 2 hours before the appointment to get to Seattle just because of traffic. You get to Seattle, you go in, you sit, and you would be, many times they would leave at like 6 a.m. and not get back to Renton until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I mean, these are 2-3 days a week where it is an all-day occurrence sitting at the doctor's office. And because she was so sick, she couldn't drive. And there was a lady named Neva that for 2 years, 2 to 3 times a week, would come, would pick Janet Kirkham up, would drive her to the hospital, to the doctor, and would sit with her through whatever she was having done. She would sit with her and be with her and be beside her. And we'd get her home so that Janet's husband could work, so they could pay the bills. That's the kind of friend that we need. We need the kind of friend that no matter what it is, will be there. And not just once, not twice, but repeatedly. All of us would say that we have a lot of friends that if we called them one time and said, hey man, I just really need you this time. We all have friends that would say, sure, I can come, I can rearrange my schedule for one day. Well, we probably all have some friends like that. But do we have the friends that would say, every day for 6 months, I'll come over and feed your cows. Every day for 6 months, I'll come and make sure your yard gets mowed because you can't mow the yard. Or I will do whatever it is, but I will just do it repeatedly, not one time. I mean, going out and feeding somebody's cows one time, it's kind of fun if you don't do it very often. But to think I have to do this every day over a period of months, pretty soon it gets to be a drag, a hassle. Do we have that kind of friend? Do you have the kind of friend that no matter what, is going to be there? I want to read to you from Ecclesiastes chapter 4. I'm going to pick up in verse 9. Solomon says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their efforts. For if either falls, his companion can lift him up, but pity the one who falls without another to lift him up. Also, if 2 lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can one person alone keep warm? And if somebody overpowers one person, 2 can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Solomon here tells us that a single person functions less effectively than 2 or more. In the Tour de France, if you've ever turned the radio or TV on during the Tour de France season, you've seen something like this. This is called the peloton. You watch that, and as you see it, you kind of think, man, there is no way I'd want to be in the middle of that pack. Because if one person falls, that is just it's a horrendous mess. Well, that's true, it is. But why do they ride like that? Because they understand that 2 and more is a whole lot better than 1. Every once in a while you'll see in the Tour de France, 1 or 2 or 3 guys will split off and they'll try to race off to the front. And sometimes the peloton will just let them go and they'll be like, yeah, we don't really care who wins this stage. You can go. But there's other times where one will take off and it looks like nobody's going to catch them. They're miles ahead. And then all of a sudden, the guy in the yellow jersey, and this one, the yellow jersey usually not leading the peloton because he doesn't want to work. But they'll say, hey, we need to catch them because somebody's up there that's dangerous to us. And it is amazing to see this big group of people will just take off. And they begin to go faster and faster and faster. And you ever wonder why they can go so fast? It's because of the way they ride. They understand aerodynamics. When you pack in behind each other, you just create this buffer and it just pushes the wind away. And the only person in this group, the only person really working hard is the guy in the very front. The guy in the front is the one, he's breaking the wind, and so he's having to pedal. If you really want to take it easy, you get in the very back of that line. And if you're in the very back of the line, every time the guy in the front pedals like 4 times, you're pedaling once or maybe twice. It is so much easier. You're cruising along. I mean, these guys, for them, 25 miles an hour is a slow ride. They're flying, and you're in the back just pedaling right along. It's so easy when you have a team working together. If you've ever been on a mission trip, you know that. You know that it is easier to work hard when you have someone working alongside of you. We've been on a mission trip, you understand that. We went this year to Haiti. And we spent a week in Haiti, and it was 105 degrees, no air conditioning, dust everywhere. The conditions were miserable. We were in a village that had no running water. The water was from a well that you couldn't drink out of. To get the water to make the concrete that we're making, ladies were carrying big buckets on their head for a mile or more back to us, and we're pouring concrete into this church. They had the whole church built, but the floor was just dirt and rock. We're pouring concrete in there, and we walk up to it, and I'm thinking, this is going to be tough. There's a lot of concrete to be poured, and the way we poured the concrete was we mixed it by hand. Shoveled it all in, poured the water, kept shoveling it, and then you take the buckets and you get in line and you pour hand buckets. And we did this for hours, standing like this. You take the bucket and you hand the bucket. You take the bucket and you hand the bucket. And these buckets were not light. And I would sit here looking at this, and if you told me, and you told my kids that hey, you're going to go and you're going to pay a lot of money to go to Haiti, and for a week, what you're going to do is you're going to turn to your side, grab a bucket of concrete, a heavy bucket of concrete, turn this way, and hand the bucket off. If you had told them that and told me that, I would have said, no way. And then if you'd have told me that I would love doing it, I would have said, you're really crazy. But I will tell you, if I have a chance to go back to Haiti and do the same thing, I would absolutely do it. Because there's something special. When a youth group this year came up, worked in Renton, for a few of those days, I had a group that we went off and we were doing volunteer projects. Weed eating these yards that were overgrown, chopping down trees and limbs and blackberry bushes and all of this stuff that I hated to do for my own house. And here we are doing it for somebody that I've never met before. Just doing it and thinking, I hate this. But I didn't. I loved it. Why? Because I got to work with some of these young men and women, and working together, working alongside somebody makes a job that might be miserable, makes it to be something that's fun. You need somebody in your life, because we are best when we have someone to serve with. We're best when we have somebody that can serve alongside us. We also know that we build the better solutions from discussing together. We come down to solutions that are better when we can sit down and we can discuss them. I really saw this illustrated this week, a great example of it. If we're planning for the 2 services, or 2 Sunday schools and 3 worship services in the future, as we're getting those planning things together, we had a conference call so that we could get Andy on there and talking about how we're going to do this, how we're going to do the music, how we're going to work the schedule and all of those things. And as we started out, it was kind of interesting, because we would just kind of start talking through and we'd give some ideas, and then we'd knock those ideas around and kind of kick them out and say, no, that's not going to work. But when we got done with that conference call, I looked back and I thought, the plan that is now set in place, back in place, is so much better than the plan that we had when we first started. Why? Because we sat down together. We could discuss with each other. We could talk with each other. We could say, no, that's not going to work. Here's why that's not going to work. And keep coming back and forth. We build better solutions when we can truly and honestly work together. If you do it on your own, you might come up with something okay. But if you can get a group of people that you can really be honest with and really discuss with and challenge each other, you're going to come down to a solution that is far better. Now, just because you put a bunch of people on a project doesn't mean that you're going to have a better solution. Because if you have a group of people that are not willing to challenge each other, if you have a group of people that aren't willing to say, no, that's not going to work, no, we can't do that, if we have a group of people that are just going to listen to the boss, and when the boss says, here's what I think we should do, and everybody else goes, oh, okay, yes, sir, you're not going to come down with a very good solution. But if you have a group of people that are willing to look at each other and say, you know what, I may have a good start, but we got to fix it. We got to fix these things. If you got a group of people that are willing to challenge each other and to talk through, you come up with something that works much better. We need each other. We need support when life is cold. Solomon in verse 11, he uses a proverb to say that two lie down together. You know, Solomon writes in an environment that was hot. The days were hot, the nights were cold. And so when he talks about it, you know, if you were traveling, you didn't want to travel with all the stuff that you might need at night to keep warm, because at the daytime, you're going to be burning up, and you got to carry all this extra stuff. And so you would go with as little as you could, and at night you'd get cold. And Solomon says that if you utilize body heat, you can lay by each other, you can use that heat, you can support each other, and by doing that, you can make a cold night bearable. Might not be fun, might not be the best night you ever spent, but you can make a cold night, a miserable night, you can make it bearable. Whereas if you were by yourself, you might not survive because of hypothermia. We need each other. Or we need to have people that we can count on. Leonard Syme, a epidemiologist from the University of California at Berkeley, says that Japan is number one in the world with respect to health. And he points to the close social, cultural, and conditional ties that are there in that country of Japan, in the nation. He says that they are so healthy overall, not because they have the best medicine, but that they're healthy overall because they have the closest family ties, the cultural ties of any other nation. And he says that you see this health as a nation because they have people they can depend on. We as Americans, we like this idea of the rugged individual. You know, I did it myself. I pull myself up by my own bootstraps. I don't need other people. There's some truth to that. There is some truth to that understanding that you need to do some things on your own. There is some truth that you and I, there are some things that we just need to do. We don't need to look to the government for a handout. We need to do some things on our own. But if we push that to that extreme of I don't need anybody else, then I think we go way beyond not just what science would tell us, not just what Leonard Syme would tell us, but we go beyond what the Scriptures tell us. Because the Scriptures tell us that we need each other. You and I need other people. You cannot be a lone Christian. You want to be the Lone Ranger Christian, you're going to burn out. You know, your life will flame out. Your walk with Christ is going to go down. You need some people that can challenge you because they give you strength throughout life. Verse 12 gives another proverb. The cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. When we band together, we become stronger. But not only do we become stronger, we find people that can complement us. Find people that can be the opposite of where you are weak, that they can be strong there. In coming here to Sanger, got to know John and Ryan. And, I kind of knew Ryan beforehand, and I would just tell you, Ryan's just a youth dude, so he's just crazy, and, we just kind of say, okay, Ryan's crazy. And but I've always enjoyed him. I love Ryan. I just like to give him a hard time. The one that I was the most interested in how is this going to work, was getting to work with John. And we started talking to each other. As I got here, we just started kind of bouncing ideas, talking about our philosophy, the way that we think a church ought to operate, where we see the church going, and I just became so excited as we continued to talk because I realized that John and I, we so complement each other. That our philosophy of ministry is the same. That the way that we think church ought to operate, the way we think things ought to happen, they just going right down the same path. Our vision for the church is the same. And so after a little bit, I started thinking, man, this is kind of bad because we're both the same. Don't we need somebody, some differences? Well, we found those differences. But those differences are the things that I'm weak in. John is stronger. I am not good with all the little details. I said in an early service, if you're planning a major event, you don't want me in charge of all the details of it. Because if you do, it is going to be probably a disaster. I am just not good at getting all of the little details. The great thing is, now Terry, don't disagree with this, because you'll ruin this illustration. John's good with that. John is good with the details. And taking the big picture, bringing it down, and finding how do we get to where we want to go. And you know what? Because of that, the church is stronger, because where I'm weak in administration areas, John is strong. There's places, hopefully, that I'm better than John, or you may think, why do we even have you? Why don't we just get John? Hopefully there's some places where I'm stronger than John, but that God has gifted me, God has gifted him. When you put us together, and you put the team together, it makes a strong bond. And it makes something that we can be better together than we could individually. You need that in your personal life. Now, hopefully, if you are married, hopefully one of those people that is your strong bond, the person that compliments you, that builds you up, hopefully one of those people is your spouse. If not, you need to spend time and make it be that way. Your spouse needs to be somebody that you can count on, that you can rely on. But I want to tell you need somebody else. If you're a man, you need some men. You need some men that you can count on. You need some men that you can call when you're down and they're going to listen to you. You need some men that are going to challenge you and encourage you. You need men that when you're going through a rough time will listen and then pick you up, dust you off, and send you back in. You need the men that might just look at you like Cody did. Cody Tutt. I was out visiting Cody a couple weeks ago. She was getting her chemo treatment. I got to tell you this story because it's hilarious. So we were getting chemo. She's getting her chemo treatment. I was visiting, and my daughter had just had a procedure done, and she was having some tubes taken out of her nose. I know that sounds terrible, but she's having some tubes taken out of her nose as the end of this procedure. And so she texts me, and she's like, "Dad, I'm really nervous about this." And I just happened to be sitting in the hospital room with Cody, and I look up and I said, "Cody," I said, "my daughter says she's really scared about this." And Cody says, "You tell her, suck it up, Buttercup." And so, the reality is, we need somebody. You need to have some men. You need to have some men in your life that when you're worrying about something you shouldn't worry about, and you're getting all stressed about it, you need somebody that will look at you and just say, "Suck it up, Buttercup." We need that. That kind of friend does not come easy. You can't go out and buy that friend. That's the kind of friend that is developed over time, and it's developed because you gave to them and they gave to you. I've been very blessed to have a number of men in my life growing up and throughout my life that have been those kind of people. Those kind of people that they would set aside whatever it is. They would listen. They'd pick me up. They'd encourage me. When I needed to be told, "Suck it up," they would say, "Suck it up." When I needed somebody just to listen, when I needed somebody to sit there while I was frustrated and didn't know what to do and crying because everything's falling apart, somebody to just sit and listen and say, "You know what, hey, it's going to be okay." But then would also know when it's time to say, "Now listen, time to quit whining. It's time to go back to work." We need that kind of man. You need that person in your life. So where do you find them? Where do we find that person? That person, the cord of three strands. Where do you find that person that can be your strength? Well, Jackie Robinson found one. His name was Pee Wee Reese. Jackie Robinson, as you all know, is the man who broke the color barrier in baseball. And everywhere he went to play, every stadium he would play in would just abuse verbally from the bleach, from the stands and from the players. The racism that he experienced was horrendous. Called him all kinds of names. Well, one day they were playing at their home stadium in Brooklyn. And Jackie Robinson made an error at second base. And he's standing there at second base, and his own fans are calling him all kinds of terrible things. And it just is, the noise is just rising and rising as people are abusing him and screaming and calling him names that shouldn't be ever repeated. And the shortstop, Pee Wee Reese, just walks over to second base, walks up beside Jackie Robinson, and puts his arm around him, and just stands there. And as he stood there, so the crowd just went silent. Jackie Robinson later said that arm around his shoulder saved his career. It was because he knew that Pee Wee Reese was willing to look at everybody else, the thousands in the stands, screaming and cursing at him, was willing to stand right beside him, put his arm around him. I have no idea what he said. I don't even, from what the story I read about this, doesn't say that Reese said anything to him. Didn't need to say anything, because the action of just walking beside him and putting his arm around him. You know, we get that kind of friend. You get them when you're going through trouble. You get them when you go through some hard times with them. The guys that I pointed out at the beginning of this sermon, you know, I don't talk to them that often. For a long time, we didn't talk that much because I lived 2,000 miles away. We didn't get together. But I'll guarantee you, if I had something and I really needed one of those guys, all I got to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, I need you. And those are guys that drop whatever they're doing and they'd be here. Why? Because we went through challenges. You need to be the kind of person that somebody else can count on. If you want to get that kind of friend, if you want to have that kind of friend, you got to be that kind of friend. You got to be the person that they can count on. You got to be the person that they just know that if I call, they'll do whatever they can to be there and to help. Where do you find them? One place is in church. The church ought to be the best place. Because hopefully in the church, you're taking out the scoundrels. You know, hopefully those that are continually attending church, that are coming here and are coming regularly and being a part of us. Hopefully kind of the real scoundrels, they probably aren't coming. You know, and hopefully if they're coming and they keep coming and they continue to come, well, hopefully pretty soon they won't be the scoundrel anymore. You know, because hopefully we'll rub off on them and we'll kind of get them going in the right direction. You come to church and you meet some people. You get to know some people. And you start to find somebody, hopefully, that you can count on. We're going to be doing growth groups starting in just a few weeks. Those are an opportunity to meet people in a smaller setting. Some that'll be your age, some that'll be other ages. I want to encourage you to be a part of those growth groups, be a part of our Sunday school. Because it's in a smaller setting that you get to know some people that you can start to ask, is this the kind of person that I can count on? Now, you're not going to come out of a 12-week growth group and say, boy, I have 3 guys now that I know that I can count on for anything, no matter what's happening. I got my 3 guys. You're not going to come out of a growth group in 12 weeks and have that person that you know you can count on. But what you may do is you come out of that growth group with some candidates. With some people you look at and go, you know, I really think I can count on them. I think I can trust that person. So I want to challenge you to be a part of a growth group. On your connection card, down under I commit to, you'll see there, I want to join a growth group. If you've already signed up, again, if you've already signed up, you don't need to sign up again. Okay, but if you have not, I'll encourage you to mark that and just say what day you'd want to do it. It's going to be about 12 weeks. You're going to study a topic of I am a church member, and then the next part is going to be a book following up on that. So I want to encourage you to be a part of that. But above that It says, I want to be the kind of friend upon whom others can rely. I think here's the most important part of this message. God has called us to share His love. God has called us as part of the church to be that one that picks each other up. Being a part of a church isn't just about coming on Sunday morning. It isn't just about being a part of a Sunday school or being a part of a growth group and getting all of these great lessons and adding up all of this great biblical knowledge and storing all this great biblical knowledge up in our head. That's not what being a church is all about. That's an important part of it. We need that training. We need those Bible study times. You need that. You need to be a part of that. But if you stop right there, you're missing it. Being a church, being a part of a church, is about loving each other, encouraging each other, challenging each other. And if we want to be the church that God wants us to be, then we need a lot of people that are going to say, I want to be the kind of friend upon whom others can rely. That I want to be, I'm not going to wait for somebody else to take care of me. But I'm going to step up and start caring for other people.